London in the 1600s was one of the fastest growing cities in Europe. By the middle of the century, its population had climbed beyond 400,000 people, making it the largest city in England and one of the busiest trading centers in the world. The city was crowded, loud, dangerous, and alive with movement at every hour of the day.
In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic paintings, engravings, and prints to life, allowing us to shift perspective, change camera angles, and move through the same scenes in ways their original artists never could. These old artworks were never meant to move, but now we can step directly into them.
First, I want to talk about the River Thames. This view shows the River Thames in the early 1600s, crowded with boats moving constantly between both sides of London. In the foreground, small wooden ferries carry merchants, workers, and travelers across the water. In the midground, larger trading ships unload barrels, timber, spices, and cloth from across Europe and beyond. The skyline behind them is packed with church towers, chimneys, and narrow buildings pressed tightly together. The river was the lifeblood of London. Long before modern roads could handle heavy transport, nearly everything arrived by water. Contemporary accounts describe the smell of fish, wet wood, smoke, and sewage hanging over the riverbanks. Watermen shouted constantly for passengers. Sailors argued over docking space. Bells rang from nearby churches through the fog. But the Thames could also be deadly. Storms overturned boats regularly, and pollution became increasingly severe as the population expanded. By the reign of King James I, concerns about overcrowding and disease were already growing. This river mattered because it connected London to the wider world. Goods from the Americas, the Baltic, and Asia passed through these waters. By the late 1600s, London's port had become one of the richest commercial hubs in Europe.
Remarkably, this same river still defines London today. This view shows Old London Bridge around the year 1630. Unlike modern bridges, this one was packed with buildings. Houses and shops lined both sides so tightly that the bridge looked like a street suspended over water. In the foreground, people squeezed through narrow passageways while carts struggled to move across uneven stone. By the 1600s, London Bridge was already several centuries old. The medieval structure had stood since the 1200s and remained the only major bridge across the Thames for hundreds of years. Shopkeepers sold bread, cloth, tools, and books directly above the rushing water below. The bridge was noisy and dangerous. Fires broke out frequently because many buildings were made of timber. The narrow arches underneath created powerful currents that sometimes destroyed boats attempting to pass through. Records suggest that many Londoners feared crossing during bad weather. Above the southern gate, the heads of executed traitors were displayed publicly as warnings against rebellion. Travelers entering London could not avoid seeing them. This bridge mattered because it controlled trade and movement through the city. It was both a transportation route and a symbol of royal authority. By the 1700s, many of the buildings were removed, and eventually the old bridge itself was replaced in the 1800s. Today, modern London Bridge stands close to the same historic crossing point. This view shows St. Paul's Cathedral before the Great Fire of London. The older medieval cathedral dominated the skyline with its enormous spire rising above the city. In the foreground, merchants gather beside bookstalls and food sellers near the cathedral grounds. By the early 1600s, St. Paul's had become more than a religious center. It was also a social meeting place where Londoners exchanged news, discussed business, and spread rumors. Contemporary writers often describe the cathedral aisles as crowded and chaotic. The area surrounding the cathedral was constantly busy.
printers sold pamphlets discussing politics, religion, and the growing tensions between Parliament and the monarchy. Horses moved through muddy streets nearby, while apprentices carried goods between workshops. But the old cathedral was already in poor condition. Lightning strikes and structural damage had weakened parts of the building decades earlier. During the English Civil War in the 1640s, further destruction affected many churches across London. Then came the disaster of 1666. The Great Fire of London began in a bakery on Pudding Lane and spread rapidly through the tightly packed timber buildings of the city. Strong winds carried flames across entire streets. Contemporary accounts describe firestorms so intense that lead melted from rooftops.
Old St. Paul's Cathedral was destroyed completely. This disaster changed London forever. Under King Charles II, the city began rebuilding with wider streets and more brick construction. Sir Christopher Wren later designed the new St. Paul's Cathedral that still stands today. This view shows Cheapside, one of the busiest commercial streets in 17th century London. In the foreground, traders display fruit, meat, fabrics, and imported goods beneath hanging shop signs. Crowds fill nearly every part of the street. By the 1600s, Cheapside had become a center of commerce and wealth. Wealthy merchants lived above their shops, while apprentices worked below from dawn until nightfall. Church bells echoed constantly between the buildings. The smells here were overwhelming. Smoke from coal fires mixed with animal waste, fresh bread, and open drains running along the street edges. Street vendors shouted over each other to attract customers. But crowded streets also created tension. Pickpockets operated constantly in busy markets. Disease spread rapidly in poor sanitation conditions. During outbreaks of plague, entire households could be sealed inside their homes. The street mattered because it represented London's growing economic power. Trade fueled the expansion of the city and strengthened England's influence overseas. Many parts of Cheapside were rebuilt after the Great Fire, yet the street itself still survives in modern London. This view shows the Tower of London during the reign of Charles I. The fortress rises beside the Thames with thick stone walls and guarded entrances. Soldiers stand watch, while prisoners are escorted through dark gates.
By the early 17th century, the tower served multiple roles. It was a royal fortress, an armory, a treasury, and a prison. Some of England's most famous political prisoners passed through these walls. The atmosphere here was tense. Executions and interrogations made the tower a feared symbol of royal authority. During periods of political unrest, rumors spread quickly through London about who might be imprisoned next. This was especially true during the English Civil War between Parliament and King Charles I. By 1649, the king himself had been executed after defeat by parliamentary forces under Oliver Cromwell. The tower mattered because it represented the power of the English state. Whoever controlled the tower often controlled London itself. Remarkably, much of this fortress still survives today, making it one of the most recognizable medieval sites in Britain. This view shows the narrow residential lanes of London shortly before the plague outbreak of 1665. Timber houses lean dangerously over the streets, above muddy pathways crowded with residents. Daily life here was difficult. Families often lived in single, cramped rooms. Water supplies were unreliable, and waste was commonly thrown directly into the streets. Children played beside open drains, while workers carried coal, beer barrels, and food through the crowds.
Then the plague arrived. By 1665, the Great Plague of London killed tens of thousands of people. Records from the bills of mortality tracked deaths weekly as fear spread through the city. Red crosses were painted on infected houses alongside the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." The streets became quieter. Wealthier residents fled the city when possible, while poorer families remained trapped inside crowded districts. This tragedy exposed the dangers of rapid urban growth without sanitation or planning. It also changed how authorities approached public health in later generations. Today, very little of these exact neighborhoods survives, but their street patterns still shape parts of central London. This view shows Westminster Hall and the Old Palace of Westminster in the late 1600s. In the foreground, lawyers, officials, and messengers move quickly between government buildings. By this period, Westminster had become the political heart of England. Parliament met here during some of the most turbulent decades in British history. Debates over royal power, taxation, and religion shaped the future of the kingdom. The atmosphere was deeply divided. Supporters of the monarchy clashed politically with supporters of Parliament. News from these halls affected not only London, but the entire country. This location mattered because the balance of power in England was changing. After the Glorious Revolution of 1688, Parliament gained greater authority, while the monarchy became increasingly limited by law. Much of the medieval palace was later destroyed by fire in 1834, leading to the construction of the famous Houses of Parliament seen today. This view shows Covent Garden during the later 1600s. The square is filled with flower sellers, performers, wealthy visitors, and laborers unloading carts behind. By the reign of Charles II, Covent Garden had become one of London's most fashionable districts. Theatres, coffee houses, and taverns attracted writers, actors, merchants, and aristocrats. Coffee houses became especially popular. Contemporary observers described them as places where people exchanged news, discussed politics, and argued about trade or science. Some historians even describe them as early centers of public debate. But entertainment districts also brought crime and disorder. Gambling, drunken fights, and prostitution were common in surrounding streets after dark. This area mattered because it reflected the changing culture of London. The city was becoming more social, commercial, and connected through conversation and print. Today, Covent Garden remains one of London's most visited districts. This view shows the rebuilding of London after the Great Fire. Construction workers carry stone and timber through partially cleared streets, while new buildings rise in the background. By the late 1660s and early 1670s, London entered one of the largest rebuilding projects in its history. Architects and planners attempted to create a safer city with wider roads and stronger materials. Sir Christopher Wren became one of the central figures of this transformation. In addition to the new St. Paul's Cathedral, he helped redesign dozens of churches destroyed in the fire. The rebuilding was expensive and slow. Many ordinary residents struggled financially after losing homes and businesses. Yet the reconstruction also created opportunities for merchants and craftsmen. This moment mattered because it marked the transition from medieval London toward a more modern capital city. Much of the London people recognize today was shaped directly by this rebuilding era. This view shows London at the end of the 1600s. Smoke rises above thousands of
rooftops, while church domes and towers stretch across the skyline. The city feels larger, wealthier, and more powerful than before. By 1700, London had survived plague, civil war, political revolution, and catastrophic fire. Yet despite all of this, the city continued growing. Ships still crowded the Thames, markets still filled with noise, bells still echoed through the streets. What makes these scenes remarkable is how close they suddenly feel when brought to life through motion. The people in these engravings stop feeling distant. The city stops feeling frozen in history. For a moment, London in the 1600s becomes a real place again. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of all. If there's another city, moment, or historical scene you'd like to see reconstructed like this, let me know in the comments below. Again, thank you so